Picture our Earth, roughly 3.5 billion years ago. It's a harsh, incredibly volatile world. In places like the Puga Valley and Ladakh, boiling hot springs are churning right in the middle of a freezing climate. But guess what? These ancient, extreme waters were actually home to thermophiles. These are incredible heat-loving bacteria. Scientists studying these harsh environments figured out that rapid calcium carbonate deposits might have actually shielded the very first organic molecules from extreme radiation. And that paved the way for one of the absolute greatest miracles in Earth's history, the formation of the first protective membrane, the literal barrier that defines a cell. Cue the Indo Animations intro.
Okay, so let's dive into this. Where do these tiny living factories actually come from? Well, back in 1665, a scientist named Robert Hooke first discovered these microscopic structures in cork, and he's the one who coined the term cells. A bit later, Leeuwenhoek observed free-living cells. This whole journey of discovery eventually led to the famous cell theory. Proposed by Schleiden and Schwann and later expanded by Virchow, this theory states something fundamental. All living organisms, whether we're talking about a tiny unicellular yeast or your massive human body, are fundamentally built from these cells. And crucially, all new cells come from pre-existing ones. It's like a building block system. A group of similar cells working together forms a tissue. Then tissues organize to form organs, and organs collaborate to build entire organ systems. The cell is literally where all of life begins.
To make this super easy to digest for your exams, here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The blueprint of life. 2. Cell types and structures. 3. Boundaries and cellular movement. 4. Inside the cell factory. 5. The quiz challenge. And finally, 6. Our animated recap.
Starting with Section 1, the blueprint of life, visualizing the foundations.
Take a look at this comparison. Notice how differently animal structures contrast with plant structures. On one side, we have human cheek cells. These are your classic animal cells, and you can see their somewhat irregular, flexible boundaries. But on the other side, we have onion peel cells, classic plant cells that look almost like rigid, rectangular bricks stacked in a wall. But here's the coolest part. Despite these obvious visual differences, this beautifully proves that cells are the universal building blocks across all kingdoms of life.
Moving right along to Section 2, cell types and structures, the factory variations.
Now here is a massive tip for your exams. The easiest way to categorize these cells is to break down the actual words. When you see the word prokaryotic, just remember that pro means primitive and karyon means nucleus. So prokaryotic cells have a primitive nucleus. On the flip side, U means true. Therefore, eukaryotic cells contain a true, well-defined nucleus. Breaking down the scientific vocabulary like a code makes it so much easier to remember.
And you can see how those root words play out right here, showcasing the vast differences between these two types. Prokaryotic cells are tiny, usually just 1 to 10 micrometers in diameter. And because they lack that defined membrane around their genetic material, all their cellular activities just happen directly out in the cytoplasm. Eukaryotic cells, though, they are massive in comparison, ranging anywhere from 10 to 100 micrometers. And they boast that true membrane-bound nucleus we just talked about. Also, while prokaryotes are pretty much always unicellular, eukaryotes can be either single-celled or make up incredibly complex multicellular organisms. Like us.
Let's put this into a comparative blueprint with bacterial, plant, and animal cells side by side. You can see clearly that bacterial cells are our prokaryotes, primitive nucleoid, no membrane-bound organelles. Both plant and animal cells are our eukaryotes, with well-defined nuclei and specialized organelles. But look really closely at that top row. Notice how animal cells uniquely lack a cell wall, while both plant and bacterial cells have one? That is a huge distinction you definitely want to remember.
Next up, Section 3. Boundaries and cellular movement, the gatekeepers.
Every good factory needs security, right? For a cell, that primary boundary is the plasma membrane. Now, it isn't some rigid, solid brick wall. It's actually described by the fluid mosaic model. Think of it as a flexible, fluid layer where molecules are arranged a lot like tiles in a mosaic artwork. Embedded right within this fluid layer are various proteins that act as strict gatekeepers. Because it only allows very specific substances to pass through while totally blocking others, we call it a selectively permeable membrane. And it's this selectively permeable nature that allows gases and water to move in and out through vital processes like diffusion.
Let's actually test how this membrane works with a quick thought experiment. Pause and ponder this for a second. Let's say you soak some mung bean seeds in water overnight, so they plump right up. Then you take those swollen beans and drop them into a highly concentrated or hypertonic solution. What's going to happen?
Well, because of osmosis, water is going to move across that selectively permeable plasma membrane from the area of high water concentration, which is inside the swollen bean, out to the area of lower water concentration, which is that hypertonic solution outside. The end result? Those plump beans are going to lose water and shrink right back down.
All right, on to Section 4. Inside the cell factory, meet the organelles.
It's time to step onto the factory floor itself, the cytoplasm, and meet the specialized departments running the show. Suspended in that jelly-like cytoplasm, you'll find these crucial membrane-bound organelles, and each one performs highly specific, life-sustaining functions. You've got the endoplasmic reticulum, which is studded with ribosomes, acting as this extensive network for protein synthesis and transport. Then there's the Golgi apparatus, functioning as the factory's packaging center. Lysosomes are your waste disposal units, breaking down unwanted materials. And vacuoles? They serve as the storage warehouses for the cell.
Here is a memory trick I absolutely love for exams. I want you to think of the mitochondria and the plastids as the independent contractors of the cell factory. Why independent? Because they both uniquely possess their very own DNA and their own ribosomes. This is huge because it means they don't have to rely entirely on the nucleus telling them what to do. They can actually manufacture some of their own proteins. This incredibly cool feature suggests that both mitochondria and plastids share a deep evolutionary history with ancient single-celled bacteria.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Quiz Challenge. Test your knowledge.
Let's see how much you've absorbed with a real student debate. Reno argues that all plant parts, even the roots, have plastids. But Rohead disagrees. He says roots are underground, so they never see the sun and obviously don't need to photosynthesize, therefore no plastids. So who is correct here? Think carefully. The answer is actually Reno. While Rohit is right that roots don't use chloroplasts for photosynthesis, the term plastids is a broad category. Plant cells also contain other special plastids called leucoplasts and chromoplasts. Leucoplasts are non-pigmented, and they are absolutely present in roots to store essential nutrients. So Renu totally hit the nail on the head with her biology.
Finally, Section 6, Animated Recap and Conclusion.
Watch how this whole operation comes together in perfect harmony. First, that fluid mosaic plasma membrane expertly regulates resources, making sure only the right materials enter the cell while blocking anything unwanted. Next, the true membrane-bound nucleus of our eukaryotic cell sends out the essential commands and genetic instructions. Taking those instructions, the independent contractors and all the other organelles execute their specialized tasks out in the cytoplasm, from manufacturing proteins to managing waste. And finally, when the time is just right, the cell divides via a vital process called mitosis to create two entirely identical daughter cells, ensuring the beautiful, continuous cycle of life.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a truly incredible scientific breakthrough just to spark your curiosity. Back in 2010, scientist J. Craig Venter and his team studied the complete DNA sequence of a simple bacterium called Mycoplasma mycoides using computer programming. And then, they successfully synthesized an exact chemical copy of that DNA in a lab. If we now know how to program and chemically build the blueprints of life entirely from scratch, how long do you think it will be before humans are engineering brand new, customized microscopic cell factories to solve some of the world's biggest problems? Think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep wondering and keep learning.